Today's show is sponsored by the Pittsburgh Opera, presenting the world premiere of Woman with Eyes Closed. Here's what you need to know. There's this gal named Mona. She realizes her son is an art thief who has stashed stolen paintings in her house. So she's got a decision to make. Does she give them back to the museum? Does she keep them? Does she turn her son in? Or does she destroy the evidence? This is all based on a real-life art heist, and Woman with Eyes Closed will keep you guessing until the very end. There are 5 performances, April 26th through May 4th. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/woman. This episode is supported by Perico Gardens. Jens, I bought a house a couple of years ago, my very first, and I've mostly spent that entire time ripping out all the old, half-dead shrubs to give myself and my yard a blank slate. But now I don't know what to do. If you are like me and you maybe need a little help getting started, you might try Perico Gardens. They're a garden design service here in Pittsburgh geared toward new homeowners and anyone who needs a little more expertise to get their garden going. They check out your yard. They give you personalized recommendations for anything you want: trees, shrubs, flowers, and more. Visit pericogardens.com to book your own design consultation. Today on City Cast Pittsburgh.
The average emergency doctor gets pulled from task A to task B every 3 to 5 minutes.
Remind me again why we picked this specialty?
Because we all have ADHD and anything else would be boring as hell.
Whew, does that hit home for me? No, I am not a doctor, and on good days, the news and podcasting world is not an emergency. But there are a lot of moments from the new Max drama, The Pitt, that sort of feel like someone's put a microscope on the Steel City. Today, we're talking about what The Pitt gets right and wrong about Pittsburgh. It's Thursday, April 24th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. We've got the whole team on deck for this one. Executive producer Mallory Falk.
Hello.
Producer Sophia Lowe.
Good morning.
And newsletter editor Francesca DeBecco.
Hey.
But before we get into today's show, I want to talk a little about our spring membership campaign.
Woo!
And one of the best perks of being a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor, our member-only meetups.
Yes, these are special events where you get to connect with our team and with other City Cast Pittsburgh neighbors. So these are people who care about the city just as much as you do. You know, the kind of people who will defend it fiercely, but also criticize it sharply and just want to make it better. Mm-hmm. These events are a way for all of us to meet up and share ideas for making Pittsburgh the best city in the Rust Belt or East Coast or Midwest. We'll debate that in person together.
Francesca's face. Also Appalachia, that too.
Yeah, come on. What about the Appalachia erasure here? We can definitely talk about that later.
Totally.
Sorry to offend Francesca.
My position is third secret place. We don't have to be confined by a region.
We're all of the things.
Yeah,
yes.
Like we all said, fight me in person. Because as a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor, you'll get invited to these regular neighbors-only events. So that might look like a walking tour of a specific neighborhood or a happy hour with us. And we're actually hosting our next event, a happy hour, next month. So this really is the perfect time to sign up, become a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor, and tap into those bennies right away.
Yeah, you don't want to miss out. We're going to have some fun together. And if you enjoyed the show and our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter and you want to get closer to the heart of what we do, now is the time to join. You can become a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor and support local journalism. Come tell us what you love about Pittsburgh in real life, or, come and debate us on our hot takes about the Pitt.
Or what you want to see in season 2 of The Pitt. And then as one added bonus, if you sign up for membership during this spring membership campaign, you get a free City Cast Pittsburgh coffee mug. It's really cute. It's like diner-esque. I really want to slam it on my table.
Well, head over to membership.citycast.fm if you want to join the growing community of City Cast Pittsburgh neighbors. So we'll move on to today's show. We know the whole world has been watching The Pitt lately, but we are a team of mostly binge watchers, so we really needed the finale to pop before we were going to dive in, and now is our time.
I also feel like binge watching it makes it feel more realistic because if, the idea is every episode is 1 hour and it's supposed to take place over a whole ER shift, it's like I'm just watching the ER shift from the sidelines.
Yes, the anxiety really builds as you're watching it.
Truly. Full immersion experience.
I think I'm the only one who watched it as a series, so I tuned in every week. And my partner is a nurse in the medical field, and I just feel like when you're immersed in that all day long, it's a lot to kind of binge watch something like that. I felt like we had to do some self-care afterwards. So I actually appreciate that we watched it 1 episode at a time. It was like little doses. But I will tell you, I was like mad at the end of every episode. There were major cliffhangers. I wish I could have just, fast forward to the next one.
Yeah, even with binge watching, I think I watched like the next 10 minutes, like every single time. Like I could not turn it off at the end of an episode. That happened one time over 15 episodes.
There was one specific episode where I actually had to kind of jump ahead to see how a storyline resolved to know if I was capable of watching it. And then I went back and restarted.
That's what the Wikipedia summaries are for, Mallory.
True. But we want to let you know that the way we're formatting the show today is the top half of the show. We are not going to reveal any spoilers. So if you haven't seen The Pitt yet, but you're curious, you want to catch up, feel free to listen to the top half of this show. We will not ruin anything for you. And then after our ad break, we will get into the storylines in depth, and that is going to be chock full of spoilers. So consider this fair warning.
Yes. So let's talk about the show itself, kind of like how it came to be. It is set in Pittsburgh, shot mostly here locally, at least in September of 2024, so last year. But you really only see like exterior shots, like the inside, the actual emergency department as they depict it most of the time. That was recreated at a soundstage in California. So there's a lot of Pittsburgh love, but actually the bulk of the show is shot somewhere else.
Yeah. And like Sophia mentioned earlier, each episode covers 1 hour of a 15-hour shift at Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Center. That's sort of the, the hospital that they're all working in.
The fictional hospital, we should say. But it is shot at Allegheny General Hospital on the north side, the big old one.
Yes. And it follows the attending physician, Dr. Robbie, aka Noah Wiley, and just how the residents and rotating doctors respond to the cases in the emergency department. And so it's really fast paced. It's kind of continual shots, and they're just like hopping from room to room. So it's it's a very active show.
But the beginning, like as there's scene setting, the first shots are all skyline photos, lots of bridges. The rivers are quite blue. So, you could argue it gets it wrong right at the jump.
There's some good editing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some CGI bluing up our skies as well. Like, at least they picked September. Like, it is legitimately when the city is, I would say, arguably its prettiest.
I don't know if you guys felt this way watching it, but like I got so giddy seeing our city. It just looks so beautiful.
Because of the CGI.
Well, I mean, just in general. Okay, the shots in general, like the aerial view of the downtown and North Shore, and then it takes you across the bridge. And in the opening scene, you see Noah Wiley walking towards AGH on the north side. He's on Cedar Avenue in East Allegheny. That's right across the street from the park. Allegheny Commons Park. And I just love seeing that shot. It's so authentic. It's like true of what like doctors and nurses are, where they're walking on their way to work. And
if they live in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. Or take the bus, or seeing that was really sweet. And all the old houses, like the row houses in East Allegheny. So that was really cool. So he then enters AGH and he goes into the South Tower, which is, like you said, making that big old one. And
it's like the most historical part of AGH, I guess, as it is now. Like it's very gilded, a lot of marble.
Yeah, definitely. And you see, like, when he's walking in, there's like sort of those marble archways. It's really beautiful. And my partner actually works at AGH at the hospital, and he said that entryway is not open anymore. So it makes sense that they filmed there. Yeah. So he says he still has patients that who complain that they can't go into that entryway.
They're going to be complaining now too. They think it's back open because Noah Wiley
right. He said it's been closed at least since since the pandemic. But then he goes into the lobby, and that is actually accurate, like how they enter the South Tower. And then he goes into the stairs and makes his way to the emergency department. He goes downstairs, and that is not accurate. That is not the way that you get to the emergency room at AGH. And that's when we enter the set, like you said, in Burbank.
And I kind of appreciate, like, because of the structure of the show and we're just like in the emergency department for almost the whole thing, I really prefer this to like a show like Queer as Folk that was quote unquote set in Pittsburgh but filmed in Toronto. And so it just really gets things wrong because it's not the same like visual. You don't actually have the accurate visual backdrop. And so I feel like this format really works well, that they could get the real exterior shots in Pittsburgh, and then when you're inside, it doesn't fully matter anymore.
It was funny, though, whenever they first showed the emergency department, I've been to that ER, and I was like, no, I clocked it right away. It's like, ours is not that nice.
I think it's also worth just stepping back to talk about why this show is set in Pittsburgh in the first place, why it was filmed here. So the EP of the show, John Wells, he went to CMU's School of Drama. He graduated back in 1979. And while he was here, it sounds like he just kind of fell in love with Pittsburgh's beauty, our landscape, our aesthetic.
Which was very different in 1979, we should note. So I love that he's kept in touch enough to know that we have gotten prettier over time.
He just overcorrected on those blue rivers, I guess.
Honestly.
But yeah, he told reporters this month that he hopes that like his love of our city comes across in the show. We're going to talk about that throughout this episode.
And John Wells also has a scholarship at CMU for directing. So I think it's cool that, you know, he loved it so much that even before he came back to film this show, he sort of left a mark here. And Noah Wiley, who helped write the show and again plays the main character, Dr. Robbie, his parents also met in Pittsburgh while they were college students. His mom went to Chatham. His dad went to CMU.
So cute. I love the Pittsburgh connections.
Actually, let's stay on that thread, kind of step back a little bit. Question for the group. Do we think that Pittsburgh is a character in the show? Like, is the city its own character?
Ooh.
Hard no.
Really?
Yeah, I think that like it's very much rooted in Pittsburgh, and it's really clear that, you know, everyone involved really cared about trying to represent Pittsburgh. There are a lot of really great references, but it doesn't feel like a character in that Pittsburgh doesn't really dictate, I think, some of the choices the characters make. And like for the most part, it's set in a hospital room. They could have put this show in any other hospital and done like a lot of local research, like, you know, dropped in the street names and everything, and it would be the same show.
That's a bit how I feel as well. Like, I do feel like if you are a Pittsburgher, you feel seen by the show. Like, there are some really hyper-specific references that I very much appreciated. But I think if you have no connection to Pittsburgh, I don't know that you're going to come away from this show with a strong sense of our city, you know, just by virtue of the fact that it does take place almost entirely inside this hospital.
Fair.
I was thinking about, you know, I've spent a lot of time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because my partner's from there, and that's where Breaking Bad was set. And to this day, you can take a Breaking Bad tour of Albuquerque, and you really would not be able to do like the Pitt tour of Pittsburgh beyond, I don't know, just the entrance to the hospital and the park across the street from it. So I think it just doesn't help you.
Super short. It would be really funny.
You'd get dropped at one site and then that'd be it. So I don't know. It just does. I don't think it helps you get any sense of the city outside of this
I do think
one
Pittsburgh,
specific hospital, at least not visually.
I do think Pittsburgh is a character. I hear all of your points, and like I kind of wish Pittsburgh was more like rooted as a character, but I view a character like a human character in a series, a movie. It is something that sort of establishes a mood or influences the plot, or just like brings cultural details. And I think that even though Pittsburgh, like our city doesn't have that many scenes in it, I think that Pittsburgh isn't so passive in the show. Like I think about it influencing like these characters in the storyline is so like gritty and hardworking, and that is Pittsburgh. Like all of the medical professionals who work here, and I don't know. I see
They're
Pittsburgh.
also doctors. You can't get that far in school if you're not hardworking.
Fair enough. Yeah. Or apparently ADHD, which I think is just like such a funny line to drop in there about like medical professionals.
That line made things click for me.
Same, honestly. I was prepared to argue that Pittsburgh was a character, but now I'm very confused because all of you make amazing points. I think I maybe still fall like, I don't know, 55-45 on the side of it being a character. I'm definitely doing a both and situation, but I think Pittsburgh is a character. I think it's more of a character than not a character anyway.
I also guess there are shows where there's like a character that's always referenced but never actually shows up. So,
or that like does most of their acting with their eyebrows and their expressions, but doesn't have a ton of lines. Like I think I'm advocating for Pittsburgh to be like best supporting actor.
Yeah,
like
sure.
We're not a lead, but we're supporting. Well, let's move on. Does anyone have opinions about where the different characters might live? Again, don't give away any plot points, but I'm curious what you think.
Javati and her mom. Fox Chapel, definitely.
100%.
If not Fox Chapel, since she did go to medical school at a very young age, I feel like that doesn't count as a spoiler because she's like a student. You see how young she is. I could see them maybe living like in Shadyside, somewhere really big, but Javati, could take the bus.
Shadyside was my guess, but I like the suburbs option. Yeah, because I think you need to have like an easy transit option to get to a school at a very young age.
I was also thinking maybe like Upper St. Clair, Mount Lebo, like...
I think for the money element, yes, but for the transit option, no. Especially, again, like you have to, at age 13 to go to college. Again, I don't think this is a big spoiler. You'll know this immediately. What about Dr. Robbie, the lead doctor? I vote War Streets just for the opening scene.
Yes, he clearly walks to work, so he's got to be in that general vicinity.
I will counter you. I do agree, North Side, but I think he lives in East Allegheny specifically because he's walking up Cedar Avenue. Because if he were living
he
in
could have gone to the
streets,
Eagle right beforehand. You never know.
maybe. I think he maybe could be from Squirrel Hill, though. Like, his family lives there.
Because he's Jewish, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like...
His given name is Dr. Rabinovich, so yes, he might have heritage there.
One of my favorite characters, the charge nurse, Dana. I think she is like the most colorful. She's kind of the only one that has a sort of a Pittsburgh accent. It kind of leans Philly.
She says
I was about to say, she's definitely from Philly, but she's lived in Pittsburgh for the last 25 years. Still doesn't count herself as a local. Claims Philly. She doesn't say any of this. This is me projecting.
You're not entirely far off because I actually looked this up. She like really wanted to have sort of like a light Yinzer accent. And she actually worked with a dialect coach, but she reached out to someone who worked on Mayor of Easttown, which as we know is more Eastern PA. And so they tried to kind of come up with more of a Western PA sound. But I mean, she should have called up our friend Don Wadsworth at CMU, who Megan gave you a lesson on the show in Pittsburghese.
Yeah.
He was sitting right here in Pittsburgh.
She seems, infinitely more talented with voice acting than I, but I don't think our episode would really recommend him. That's not his fault. I just wasn't a great student, but also he gave me Shakespeare. That's not fair.
That's true. He gave you the advanced lesson. The thing I did appreciate was the actress who plays Dana did say that it like really bothers her when somebody's playing like a character from Georgia and they have a Cajun accent. Might have been a little bit of a knock at the most recent season of White Lotus, but so she didn't want to like come off that way. She really wanted to nail Pittsburgh. I don't know that she was 100% successful, but yeah, I appreciate the effort.
I think she gets the attitude dead right, though. Like, that part is perfect. And it kind of gives like South Hills vibes to me, like a little bit.
Exactly. That is what I was going to say. She definitely takes the T into town for work and like walks up the hill to AGH. She's from like Dormont or Beachview. Like, family has lived there forever. I think that she like her whole vibe was authentic. When I saw an interview of her like talking in her normal voice, I was like pretty impressed. Like, she did a good job.
I think she's more of a Mount Oliver girl myself. Like,
okay, yeah.
The Pittsburgh Reddit was very aligned that she has Brookline vibes.
Ooh, okay.
Oh.
Very close. All right, I was close with Beachview. Yeah, all right.
We're in the right part of town.
Which ones do you think live in the suburbs?
Definitely Langdon because of those children. He's in Wexford. I feel pretty certain.
I said the same thing, Mallory. Like, he's a Wexford dude. He has like wife, kids, and a dog. He definitely shops at the Whole Foods. His kids go to North
Trader
Allegheny.
Joe's.
Yep. This will all make a lot more sense to you once you watch the show. So yeah, come back. The second half of our show here will have spoilers. So make sure to watch the whole season before you listen.
Today's show is brought to you by Aura Home. This Mother's Day, don't just tell the moms in your life how much you love them. Share what's going on in your world in a way that can stick with them for years to come. I've got a cousin. She is older than me, kind of an aunt, really, and we haven't lived in the same city in almost 20 years, but I want her to know me and the family that I have found here in Pittsburgh. So she got an Aura frame a while back, and it has fully changed how we talk to each other. So I send her frame pictures of my kid, who she's only met in person like 2 or 3 times, but she knows exactly when he took his first step, what color his favorite cars are, and that when he is up to something, he looks exactly like our grandfather. It keeps us connected in this really special way, and I'm so grateful for it because it has nothing to do with social media. Aura's Carver frame was Wirecutter's #1 pick for a digital photo frame, and you've probably seen it in a bunch of other gift guides. So if you have not gotten one yet, now is the time because Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners to this show can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com, promo code CityCast. Please support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is sponsored by the Allegheny County Elections Division and their call out for a very important duty. They want you to be a poll worker in our upcoming primary election. If you are a patriotic sort, maybe someone who gently pressures your friends and family to please go vote, if you're naturally cheery or helpful, if you don't mind a touch of very light paperwork, if you love stickers as a reward for being a good citizen, you can do all this and more, plus your civic duty, by being a paid poll worker. Election Day is May 20th, and poll workers earn between $150 and $175 for the day. And if you're brand new to the gig, you will be trained, plus you get paid for that too. One note, to participate, you must be registered to vote here in Allegheny County. I know we don't have to tell our regular listeners just how important these primaries are. This will very likely be when Pittsburghers, for example, elect the next mayor. So if your time is flexible and you think this might be right for you, learn more and apply at AlleghenyVotes.com. All right, y'all, reminder, we are in the middle of our spring membership drive, and we want you to become a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. We're hoping to get 65 new members, new neighbors. That is also 65 cute as heck new mugs shipped straight to y'all's door this week and next week. So if you were listening to this and maybe putting it off, lol, I see you. But if you're genuinely learning something and getting value from the truly bananas amount of information we drop on y'all every day, please do consider joining. And then you also get to skip all the ads in the podcast. It is such a win-win. Thank you to all the folks who have joined already. Now, please recruit 5 to 10 of your podcast-loving besties to please join you. Get all the details and sign up at membership.citycast.fm. So back to the Pitt. We're going to talk more about the actual show, the stuff that happens, where it maybe happens, because sometimes they tell us like it's pretty explicit and sometimes they do not. We're left to guess, and what we want to see in season 2. So a huge content warning here. There will be spoilers, many spoilers. Let's start with the plot points. Like, how could stuff have maybe happened here, but also maybe not have happened here?
I took that question to one of my friends. Her name's Lily Nong. They are currently a medical student, but she went to Pitt, practiced emergency medicine as a paramedic in the city.
Ooh.
And they actually talked about the ambulance. Very small plot, but the ambulance that gets stolen from the Bay by frat students.
I don't think it's small, actually. I think that's like a pretty big one because it carries on through multiple episodes.
That's true. But it actually also happened here in real life.
My favorite moment is like in one of the first episodes when the ambulance gets stolen, because that happened maybe like 1 or 2 years ago. It honestly might be older now. But like the ambulance made it all the way from the city to Aliquippa. And it's just so funny because that's like such a niche thing that happened in Pittsburgh. And then the other quote where like that patient is like, I could get an Uber to Presby. Like the beef between like AHN and UPMC is so real.
You know, I wondered about that the entire time I'm watching the show, especially like when Dr. Robbie's standing on the roof and you see the helicopter come in with still Allegheny Health Network on the helicopter.
Yeah.
Like, Do you think like Jeffrey Romoff, like the former CEO of UPMC, just like was livid about this whole thing? Because that guy loved attention and got celebrities to voice their commercials all the time, still does. Like, I am fascinated by what UPMC execs might be thinking about this.
That being said, I feel like people wanting to transfer their care to other hospitals was kind of like a knock on AHN. And so maybe UPMC was happy about this depiction. Is there where people want to go if they have any say in the matter?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and they do mention a lot of UPMC facilities through it. They just don't say the name. Like they say like Presby and Mercy and West Penn and all these other things that are like, I mean, we know, but other people wouldn't necessarily know.
And then, Megan, one of the things you pointed out was there is just one attending, Dr. Robbie, who is very much overwhelmed.
Yes.
And
I feel like so much is a problem because Dr. Robbie is alone in the room all the time.
Yeah, well, there definitely would be more doctors and attendings, at least at a hospital in Pittsburgh, like these big ones, AHN, UPMC. This is what Lily said. There'd usually be about 2 to 4 attendings. So at least twice as many people as we'd see here, maybe like 5 to 6 residents, and then obviously more nurses, med students, techs that help and pitch in. But in terms of doctors, like they're just a few people off. But, you know, I guess we can't have that many characters in the show.
Unfortunately, I think that sometimes there is only one attending. My partner said that that's accurate sometimes, unfortunately. And the other thing he pointed out was that there weren't any respiratory therapists in the ER, which is...
Do they usually have them there? I don't know who usually staffs an ER.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There also weren't any physician's assistants. So, like, I mean, I recognize that. I think it's funny that, like, a lot of positions now that are often in ERs are like, wait a second, where's our representation?
Yeah. And I know we follow, like, the physicians, the doctors more. We even follow them more than the nurses. But it's just an interesting thing to point out of, like, what you'd actually see in the ER.
That being said, I have heard people praise the fact that there are these positions that, like, never get attention in previous shows, like the custodial staff, that you do see the critical work they're doing throughout this series. And so, yeah, maybe not any pulmonary representation here, but there are other hospital workers that I think are getting their shine in a way that they haven't on any other medical series.
Yeah, that's important.
Totally. Well, besides the doctors, all the other staff, the other people in the emergency room are the patients. And I also asked Lily about that too, whether like these injuries seemed realistic and whether they'd be getting so many people showing up at once.
This isn't happening like every hour, like the way, like how each episode is 1 hour. A lot of those things that are happening in 1 hour probably take place over like 4 or 5 hours. But when I was in paramedic school, I remember doing my like trauma rotation at Presby, and there's like 3 trauma bays at Presby. And I remember like 3 traumas came in at the same time. So like we were just jumping from like room to room to room. And like I was a student, but like at that point I just like started helping because like everything was hitting the fan at once. So definitely like moments like that happen, but it's not like super crazy all the time. And I think a lot of emergency medicine right now is patients who don't have access to primary care, non-acute complaints, like they need like a medication refill or they have high blood pressure. And I do think the Pitt like tries to highlight that a little bit. But like the waiting room being like super crowded and wait times being like 8 hours is extremely realistic.
Unfortunately, I can attest to this. Waiting in the ER is horrible, and I've been there for 7-8 hours. I think the waiting time in the waiting room of the on the show is extremely accurate, and just how everyone is there with just stuff together, and the most important cases are going back first. Yeah, not a fun time.
You know, I fussed about this too, like the idea of like the wait times and that kind of thing. And also just like, I feel like I hear people in Pittsburgh talking about going to the ER in a way that I did not hear living in other cities. However, I was reminded that an ER is required to take people regardless of insurance or anything like that. And I think there could be an element of like privilege here, like we're seeing this and we're like, who the hell would want to wait in a waiting room for 8 hours? But like, if that is your only option, that is where you go. Because I think that's why it's a cross section of humanity with cases big and small, is because they don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Also, I bet a lot of this stuff just feels so on point because the Pitt really did their research and apparently brought in medical professionals to help them build out some of these storylines. Mallory and I were both actually listening to the segment on Science Friday recently where they had a doctor on from UPMC Children's who got to consult on the show and influence all of these decisions about how they approach some of these stories.
Yeah, her name is Dr. Sylvia Uwusu-Ansah, and it was really fascinating to hear about how she and other local doctors contributed ideas to the show. One of the things she talked about, Dr. Robbie is, teaching the residents, and he explains that when a patient dies, everyone observes a moment of silence to honor that patient, and that's actually something that is done at Children's Hospital. That was her suggestion to incorporate into the show. She says anytime there's a passing, they take a moment to celebrate the patient's life and take a moment as health providers to just take a deep breath before moving on to the next patient. So I thought that was really, really touching that that's an actual thing that's happening here that then got woven into this series.
I love that. That was a really powerful scene, and I hope that that's implemented at all hospitals. I think every life deserves that, whether you're the one who, was treated or you're the one who's caring for the patient.
Yeah, I also love just kind of stepping back a little bit that she says she hated medical dramas, all of them.
Yeah.
But she says that one of the things that this show gets right and that it really validates the experience. But she says the medical scenarios and the pace that you were talking about, Sophia, all of that, this show gets correct. And it actually validates the experience of a lot of medical professionals in a way that she has just never seen on film before.
I would say the majority of emergency departments, especially when you think of smaller, suburban areas or rural areas, we have community hospitals or tertiary care centers where we are the hospitals that may only have certain types of specialty groups or surgical groups. We're overwhelmed all the time. At my hospital, UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, we see about 200 kids a day, 80 to 100,000 children a year in the emergency department alone.
Wow, that's not surprising. Incredible. Dang, we're so lucky to have Children's.
We really are. And she actually kind of talked about that too, just kind of the contributions Pittsburgh has made and continues to make to medicine. She was asked kind of why is this show set in Pittsburgh? And she says, why not? Look at all of these contributions we've made to medicine. We have Thomas Starzl, who performed the first successful liver transplant, the Freedom House Ambulance Service, which was really the birth of EMS services, emergency medical care in our country.
And they did such a good job breaking that story into the whole show.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts. I love that so much.
I did too. And she was actually the one who advocated for that storyline. And she's actually working right now on getting a Congressional Gold Medal for the folks in the Freedom House Ambulance Service. So I love that that was something she pushed for. And I agree, the show handled it so beautifully. And that, when we're talking about is Pittsburgh a character or not, that might be the most critical scene for the argument that it is, because this is a really key part of local history that people are learning from watching the show.
Yeah, people all over the nation, certainly. I also thought some of the details that she talked about, people speaking so many different languages in the city of Pittsburgh, they have the Nepali patient and just what it takes to be able to treat her effectively because they don't speak the same languages. And also, this was one that hit home for me, how often she personally sees cases of pediatric ingestion of cannabis gummies.
Oh, is that really common? I watched that line and
common.
I was I could absolutely see this happening, but I didn't know if it was a regular basis.
Yeah, and I mean, pets and children, I have a friend who works in the space actually, and she said that unfortunately it happens so often that when her kids now go to a new adult's house, they want to go do a play date or something, she now asks parents about this, not to scold them or shame them. She doesn't want to know what they do behind closed doors. She just wants to be do you have your stuff in a safe place away from the kids? Okay, cool. And that's part of her regular conversation now because she sees it so often professionally.
That is so fair.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like there were storylines in here that were sort of a little PSA to the public. And I really appreciate that because I don't think any of them were done in a really heavy-handed way. But I could imagine that this show was really didn't just teach people about history like the Freedom House Ambulance Service, but there's things to be extra cautious about or watch for now that I certainly didn't know about until watching the show.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Getting in better shape, eating healthier? Saving more money? Traveling somewhere new? What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of City Cast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. The Spanish I learned on Babbel really helped me on a recent trip to Mexico City, ordering in restaurants, shopping at the textile market, cheering on at the Lucha Libre, and I've been keeping it up since I got home. You're a podcast listener. I know that because you're listening here. I bet you'll love Babbel's new podcasts. On Eavesdrop in Espanol, which I listen to, you get to listen to a real conversation, then have the teacher host explain back to you. Then you listen again and catch everything. And you can even read along in the transcript. It's a really fun and effective way to learn. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hi, Yins. It's Megan Harris. And if you love City Cast Pittsburgh, I've got a way for you to get even more out of it. And that's by becoming a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. Neighbor is the new name for the City Cast Pittsburgh membership program. So when you become a neighbor, you're not just supporting our work, which thank you, you're also unlocking benefits that make being part of this amazing city even more fun and rewarding. Like access to our exclusive member-only events. We're thinking insider tours, volunteer meetups, even happy hours with other neighbors who love Pittsburgh like you do. So every Monday, we're going to send you a curated list of the best things happening in town that week, so you will always be in the know. You'll also have access to ad-free listening, so episodes in a special feed, and we'll give you a thank you here on the pod. Even a chance to shout out your favorite local business or nonprofit. And if you join this week, we'll send you a fun new coffee mug proclaiming your status as a bona fide City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. It is our way of saying thank you and making our morning chats feel even more neighborly. So head over to membership.citycast.fm today to become a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. That's membership.citycast.fm, and thanks. Where do we think the different plot points are happening? Because sometimes stuff's going on, but they don't tell us where in the city it allegedly is. Like, where do we think that Pitt Fest was? Because if AGH is the closest hospital where they're taking all the patients, like, it has to be somewhere near there.
Well, I think Pitt Fest sounds like orientation week, like the university really wants to hype it up. So first, they did a lot of research in other ways, but I think terrible name for a music festival in Pittsburgh.
Oh, did you see the logo on the badges too? Also not good.
No, I didn't catch that part.
Like, for AGH to be the closest, it could be in Allegheny Commons Park, except clearly not, because when they're all sitting there having a beer at the end, there would not have been, like, they wouldn't have been able to just sit down when there was just a mass casualty event there, when there was just a mass shooting.
They were also waiting for a bunch of ambulances to come in. They didn't know right away. If it was right outside, then they would have been able to tell, like, what was happening.
That's true. And it can't be the point, because then the first trauma center would be Mercy.
Right. I don't know. This confused me. I was with you, Sophia. When they said Pitt Fest, I immediately thought Oakland. But that's just because we refer to, like, Pitt as anything, the
they
university.
could have gone with Berg Bash. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's also terrible.
My first thought for where you could have, like, a major music festival like that is, like, Carrie Furnaces, but that's completely in the wrong direction.
I know. Yeah. I was kind of thinking, like, maybe Highmark Stadium. Do you guys remember when there used to be, like, an amphitheater over there? Okay, now we're talking about what used to be there, but I don't know. Maybe the North Shore. Maybe, like, it was spread out, like Stage AE. Maybe it's in multiple places. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that one's going to remain a mystery. We'll bring it back down, like, because Pitt Fest is obviously, like, the culminating big climax of the show. Where do we think the e-scooter accident happened, where it was the person versus the car?
Downtown.
Oakland, for sure. Oh.
Oh. I actually think downtown, too. I'm with you, Sophia.
My biggest question is, when was the show set? Because it had to have been before e-scooters were removed from the city of Pittsburgh.
Well, kind of. I was thinking you meant time of year because there's this guy that comes in. He mentions like it's the first time I've worn shorts all year, which suggests like it's like April or May, maybe.
Yeah.
But the Pirates are playing too. Like the one guy comes in quoting the Pirates score, so it has to be during baseball season.
Early bucko season, like springtime for sure.
But our trees are not green yet. Like they're not they're not looking nice.
Well, based on that season 2's taking place July 4th weekend and it's 10 months later, the show would have taken place in September.
Okay, good for you, Sophia. Look at you mathing. Let's also take a moment just to shout out all the small ways that they clearly went out of their way to try and incorporate pieces of Pittsburgh. Even if they didn't get it exactly right, I do appreciate just like all of the mentions they like took time to find or like took feedback on and like tried to slip them into the show. Like the Mr. Rogers set builder, for example. Like that was just so sweet.
That was really
That's
sweet.
my favorite.
I loved that. I also loved every time someone said this is a hospital, it isn't X. Like this is a hospital, it's not Rivers Casino. This is an ER, it's not Philly.
Yeah.
I loved those lines.
Those were so great. There was also a lot of really cool just like name drops of like local businesses. There was a sommelier at Altius.
I immediately started like Googling the menu when I was watching and I was like, ooh, maybe I should go there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was someone wearing a Giant Eagle t-shirt. I was shocked that there wasn't more Pittsburgh like gear worn.
Well, then you need to pay to use the logo.
I mean, for this to be realistic, 2/3 of the people in that waiting room should have been wearing Steelers jerseys.
Or Penguins or Pirates
Yeah.
or something.
Pirates.
Although they must have, that's a good point, Sophia. They must have paid the rights because in the honor walk for the college student that died, he's wearing a Steelers blanket.
They also get permanis delivered for lunch from like one of the characters in the show.
I don't understand how you would have the energy to keep working a shift like that after you eat a permani sandwich. Like that did not feel super realistic. I feel like you would just need to go digest.
I'm not even sure you could find the time to actually consume the permani sandwich. Like it's a whole event.
But I do think like having like working in a big like a workplace with a lot of people in like a small break room situation where like everyone keeps walking outside and they're like food in the break room, like that feels very true to every job I've ever had. You just like eat like a feral animal.
Yeah. And also accurate to like have someone send something. Like I've heard many stories of my partner telling me that like patients and patients' families will buy them lunch or treats or whatever. But my one beef with this is that if it is indeed based at AGH, you know, the Pittsburgh Medical Trauma Center, I think it'd be more realistic that they're eating a Pepe's sandwich because I have
Pepe's is better
true.
too.
I know that Pepe's delivers to the hospital a lot. So that's my one hot take there.
I think one of my favorite moments in the whole series is when they're dumping on Ohio. Like it's just so low key, which felt very real. Like Dr. Robbie's talking to Collins about like, you know, the repercussions. And she's like, worst case, you'll just have to go take a job in Youngstown. You'll be fine. And it's just, but it's said with so much venom, like dreaded Youngstown.
Yeah, and you know he won't be fine.
Yeah.
That's so true to Pittsburghers. And we can't forget like the iconic ending scene, them at Allegheny Commons Park. I was like so giddy when I saw it. I was like, that's my park.
Yeah, drinking Iron City beers.
Who's bringing out the cooler after the day you've had? Where's that cooler been all day? Where did you get the ice? Like, do you really keep a case of Iron City just hanging around?
It kind of seems like it because they were like, yeah, we do this a lot. We debrief after work.
Yeah, and you know, the show, it does get a lot right, but they do get some things wrong. Like the whole city of Pittsburgh was up in arms after somebody pronounced Woolies wrong. Critical mistake.
Yeah, Langdon. I mean, I would argue it's not the mispronunciation of Woolies. It's the implication that you work at AGH. Let's just pretend our theory is correct. Your family lives in Wexford. You're not going over to the Strict District to buy a pice of fish after work and taking that thing home. And if you are,
closes
you
at 5 p.m.
absolutely know what time it closes. Yes, Sophia.
I was going to say the Strip District like markets are not open that late. Most of them do some wholesale and stuff. They're done by 5.
They tried.
Exactly.
They tried.
I like it for the effort.
The other thing was whenever they said jack off instead of jag off. Come on.
I know. I was sad
That
about
was
that.
so disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm still floored that someone did not like hear someone say jack off and go take a double take and was like, wait a second.
But
People
I had
in
to do a double
Pittsburgh-
take. Like I literally like rewound it a little bit and I was like, wait a second, was that jack off instead of jag off? Because I wasn't sure of what I heard. Maybe they just missed it.
Well, Megan, we were talking about the same thing because I originally thought that they were saying yins on the show, but you said that they say use.
Use.
I heard
It's
use.
definitely use.
My subtitle said a use.
That's what you get when you get the mayor of Easttown coach to coach you.
I know. And like, to be fair, like it does still feel Pennsylvania. Like I have like, you know, I've met people in Western Pennsylvania who talk like that. It sounds very authentic, but man, she could have thrown a yins in there for sure. And the one other thing I caught was they mispronounced Monroeville. They said Monroeville, which people on Reddit were mad about.
I also noticed that Mel said that her sister was at a facility in North Hills, not the North Hills, which felt like a little error.
Oh, I the same thing. I think they said the I-79. Weird.
No. I didn't catch that one. But they do, like, they mentioned Frick Park and South Park, Fine Wine and Good Spirits, Crosby the dog, and they ask him, like, do you mean David or Sid? Like, there's just so many, like, little moments woven into the fabric of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really tell, like, people who know Pittsburgh had some hand in the show.
I'm really excited to see what they're doing for season 2.
Which is happening. It's official. Noah Wiley and others, they say they're writing now, and they're going to be back in Pittsburgh, I think this September, to shoot for a few days. I guess we should mention there is technically still a lawsuit ongoing with the estate of Michael Crichton, who, you know, is the really prolific author. He did Jurassic Park and Andromeda Strain and like so many other things. He made ER. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And people say that The Pitt is a reboot, which I guess the showrunners had discussed doing years ago, potentially with Noah Wiley. But the current folks making The Pitt disagree. Obviously, it has not stopped them. Like, The Pitt is now going into season 2. It did not prevent this show from coming out and getting made. So, yeah, season 2 expected to drop in early 2026. I'm wondering if y'all have any Easter eggs or storylines that you would like to see in season 2, like maybe stuff that they didn't get to this season, but you really want them to next time.
Well, I heard that the next season is going to take place around 4th of July weekend.
Yes.
So like kind of iconic Pittsburgh. I'm imagining there's going to be some sort of, I hate speaking these things into existence, but unfortunately there might be a fireworks incident and I don't know, maybe they'll shout out Zambellis. I don't know, something like
we
that.
We actually got a message from one of our listeners on Instagram saying, like, I heard you guys talking about the Pitt. The 4th of July weekend is the worst in the city of Pittsburgh for the emergency departments, like by far.
I mean, that kind of makes a lot of sense to me. I'm sure even just like the heat stroke cases alone are filling up the ER then.
Well, speaking of heat, do you guys know what else is happening during 4th of July weekend this year in Pittsburgh?
I mean, it happens every year in Pittsburgh.
Anthrocon!
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
furries
yes.
are coming.
That is so perfect for a storyline.
I hope they do it.
If there's not a furry in this season, then I think the whole thing wildly inaccurate. I also took a little spin through the Anthrocon website, and they have river cruises, I assume on the Gateway Clipper, so we could get a river accident and also maybe a bridge incident and Anthrocon in the same plot line. I think that'd really get messy and be good drama.
Definitely heat exhaustion in the suit.
It would be funny if it was just kind of like recurring throughout the entire shift. You were getting more and more furries who don't
like you just get a furry every episode or two.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for transit-related disasters in Pittsburgh, like something happening in a tunnel, a bridge catching fire or collapsing, both of which have happened in recent memory. Like the convention center caught on fire once, which actually involved a bridge too, because there's that little bridge
during Anthrocon.
Yeah.
Like the bus falling into a sinkhole or down a hillside, or two bus drivers racing, also real things that happened here not long ago.
No, sinkhole bus has to be a storyline. I also think, like, to me, the number one Pittsburgh injury is people getting injured trying to climb the incline tracks, like drunkenly trying to climb up the incline tracks. So that is the kind of accident I think should be showing up in this.
That's a number one injury?
No.
I was taking a little poetic license there. By number one, I don't mean recurs the most. I meant like feels extremely Pittsburgh, like would only happen here.
Okay, I was a little concerned.
I would be really excited if I know the timing is wrong for real life, but I think you could make it work. Like the regatta, you know, that float tag. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That contest they have where they shoot the flying objects off into the river. Like there's so many opportunities there. Like, first of all, flying objects going into the river. Second, what if people drink them on and then they get a parasite, like the water?
Yes.
River disease. very believable.
Definitely. Or a boating accident. Yeah, something with the boat. I was talking to my partner about this, and he said that he wants to see a storyline where someone gets, this is so gross, an intestinal blockage after eating too much at Rib Fest.
That's so specific.
I know.
Well, we are definitely going to watch season 2 as soon as it comes out. But if you have any Pittsburgh Easter eggs you'd really like to see, any storylines you want in season 2, or you have hot takes on which neighborhood one of these characters lives in, please give us a call. Our number is 412-212-8893.
That's all for today here on City Cast Pittsburgh. But before we go, we want to celebrate our newest City Cast Pittsburgh neighbors, Natalie H., Susan L., Tom U., and Kathy H. Thank you all so much. And if you're listening to this, please keep your eyes on your inbox because we're going to be sending y'all an email very soon so you can get your fancy new coffee mugs shipped directly to your door. If you would like to get your own coffee mug and become a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor, go to membership.citycast.fm/Pittsburgh. And if you sign up and you want to say something nice about us, trust me, we read them all, and your kind words really mean a lot to the whole team, like a lot. Again, that is membership.citycast.fm/Pittsburgh. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. We'll talk to you soon.
What if the ER is entirely filled with people or no, I guess furries don't call them costumes. I was just like, what if it's just like furs and the pierogies?